Hello, welcome to Perspectives YYC. In today's episode, I speak with Jill Paddock, an abstract painter here in Calgary. This is inadvertently our second take, as we'll cover. In this episode, we talk about everything from painting on a basement floor to the role of parenting and creativity, some mental health stuff, ongoing war with corporate America, damn you, West Elm, and general curatorial advice. I hope you enjoy it. And if you have a moment to pause and jump on our podcast, Apple Podcast app, or whatever you're listening to, give us a rating, a review, a subscription, that'd be greatly appreciated. A quick thank you to Handmade, a local band here who's just released their debut EP called For You. It's on, I believe, all streaming services. They allowed us initial access, pre-release, for their amazing song On and On, which you hear before and through the podcast. If you do get a chance to check them out, Handmade, not the Thai boy band, just check them out. Give them a follow on Instagram, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you might be able to search and find them. Thanks again to Handmade for an awesome track for us. But without further ado, here's my sit-down chat with Jill Paddock. Welcome back to Perspectives YYC, where, we're kind of having fun.
Yeah, we are.
Mostly. My sponsorship partner, business partner, not crime yet, although we'll talk about that, Kyle, is Kyle here at Media Lab YYC. But Kyle's been awesome. So thank you again, Kyle, for all the help, direction, and guidance and computer knickknacks that you do. Today we're here with Jill Paddock. I'm going to say again, even though it doesn't make any sense, Jill joined me a few weeks ago, and unfortunately the computer decided that it didn't record properly, or it recorded and it corrupted, but we're going to take a two. So maybe we'll start off quickly, Jill, by chatting about how we know each other.
Sure.
And what's going on with you lately.
Well, I know you because you asked me to put up my first solo show at Phil and Sebastian in Mission, and that ran from September something till October 1st, so it just came down.
Yeah, August. Actually, I looked at it. It was like August 19th or something.
Oh, wow. Okay,
yeah.
The end of August till the beginning of October, and that we just took that one down. But that's how I know you, and I believe you knew about me through your wife. Yeah,
Helen, my glorious wife, Spark Joy at Helen, was a big fan of yours. We actually own one of your pieces, and she did one of the workshops with you.
Yeah,
which is really cool. Yeah, so when I was curating that, she told me to talk to you, and you immediately jumped on it. And the show was, I thought it looked amazing.
Yeah, I loved it.
I'm getting a lot of comments already, people missing it. The walls just look so bare, naked.
It was really fun, and it turned out amazing, like more than I could have ever hoped for it to look. So
yeah, well, your work's great. Not to fanboy too much, but I just like your work in general. But it really suited that space too. Mm-hmm. We got a lot of compliments. We actually got a few purchasers, which was nice. And we're going to work together soon.
Okay.
Yeah. Magazine, we've talked about some nuances there. Yeah. But I think I'm going to use that picture eventually. And more future shows. As I was just talking off mic, might have a new project to rush into once again for Christmas, although you're busy.
Well, I can always make time for things I want to do, right?
Yes. The other interesting thing about us, Jill, is that in the last 2.5 weeks since we spoke, a shit ton of things have changed.
Oh, yeah.
So it's going to be hard to kind of recapture the idea of a first podcast here.
Yeah.
But Why don't we start with, why don't we just talk about what's going on right now? So
Okay.
Where do you want to start? Do you want to start something pleasant that you actually have a studio now? Or
Let's start with that. So we've been doing a home renovation and we added another room to our house, which sort of led into me being able to take a space that we were using before as an office, but turn that into something that's my office now. And so it's my very own sort of room of my own, I guess. And I've been able to set up all my art supplies there and just have a space that is dedicated to that. So that makes me very excited.
Maybe just for context, let's talk about how you used to paint, how you got into it, and where you were doing it.
Yeah, so probably about 6 years ago, I started painting in the middle of the night. I do have an undergrad in general studies with a minor in art and art history. So I did have that background. I had some materials from university kind of kicking around. I'd be woken in the middle of the night by kids and then they would go back to sleep and I just found that I couldn't. So my mind was always racing and just kind of all over the place. And I just started painting in the middle of the night. So what I used to do back then was paint in the storage room in our basement, just in the dark, in the middle of the night. And in the morning, I'd bring my painting upstairs to the daylight and just be so excited to see what it actually looks like. That kind of evolved into, as the kids got a bit older and I would, paint while they were around rather than when they were sleeping or napping. During the daytime, I would just bring my canvases and my paint up to the kitchen and I would just paint on the floor in our kitchen sort of living room area while they were eating or watching shows or playing, and just kind of integrated that into my life that way. And that's just what I've been doing up until now. And now I finally have a room.
So if you haven't seen Jill's work, it's all kids' handprints and spilled food. And
they do like to help, but I'm like, no, here, do your own.
No, it's really not. It's beautiful stuff. And as I learned from you hanging, there's so many different styles and approaches that you've been.
Yeah, I'm inspired by so many different things that I just want to try everything that kind of comes to my mind. It's almost like there's not enough time to try all the different things that I have in my mind going on. Like I definitely have some ideas now that I want to try, and we've got all 3 kids in hockey right now, and I need to like write down what I need to do because otherwise it goes in one direction of my head and out the other. And
I can't even believe it's October.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Right?
So the work that I was familiar with is, I wouldn't know how to describe it, the abstract lines and their beautiful colors. And then from your Instagram, you were doing the palette knife stuff with beautiful floral shapes. And then you brought your nudies, which was fun. So we had nudies up at the coffee shop, which is important to highlight. They were nudies.
They're fun.
Yeah. And then when we did the cover art competition for the magazine, you've done abstract city work.
Yep. Surprise!
It's so cool. Yeah, I love it. I just think that the idea of being creative with you is very, maybe, I don't know, multifaceted. There's just something.
Well, sometimes I say I have like art ADD. I just kind of can't. I like to move things around. I like changes, and that's kind of, I feel like, part of my artwork too. I like to think that, a lot of it sort of invokes movement and change, and it's not always static. It's not something that when it's done, it's done. Like I paint over things a lot as well, and I like to change my style. I like to feel that it's like always sort of pliable, I guess, and it can always be added to, I suppose.
There's a communal aspect. We talked about the other time. There's a communal aspect where there's an idea of both that you like to share. You do workshops. You want to talk to people about techniques. Even the pricing strategies that you have a specific philosophy around it. Yeah, let's maybe cover that. I don't know where you want to start. Whether it be how did you get into teaching? Although we'll talk about that.
Well, I guess. Well, sort of first off, I like to share what I do and how I do it and everything because I think I appreciate when people do that with me. I like when people are open and honest and genuine, and so I hope that I am that as well. Yeah, so I love to tell people what I'm up to and what materials I used and how to do it too. I got into teaching workshops. I guess, well, my past also, so in university I did that undergrad with the art sort of as a subject as well, but it was actually a means to an end at the time. I wanted to be a teacher. So it was a teachable subject. It kind of came to me, like easier to me than having to write a bunch of essays or do math. So, so that's what I chose to do. But it wasn't really my passion at the time. It was just sort of to get to the point of being able to be a teacher. And so I did that for a couple of years. And so I guess I have that in me as well. And then I started teaching workshops with a friend of mine who's a sommelier, and we just kind of got to talking, and she really wanted to share her knowledge of food and wine with her friends. And she was like, you should come over and teach my friends how to paint, and we can have this big night at our house and it'll be so fun. And I was like, we should do like paint night, but way better, right? Because I don't know, I feel like, I don't know, we just wanted to kind of do paint night, but sort of class it up a bit. So we did, and it was fun.
Yeah, my wife did one of the, I don't remember where the venue was, but she had a great time. And then the other thing I learned through our show together, I mean, you're, a sense of collaboration and trying to connect with other artists. It's not restricted to just say painter to painter. I mean,
I love doing stuff with other makers and artists, and the idea of them sharing what they can do, like, because it's things that I can't, and me being able to do something together with them and create something beautiful that I could never do on my own is pretty awesome. Like I've done, I hope I don't miss any, but like I've done a lot of really cool collaborations with Powena from A. Mare & Co. We've done, like, we did baby blankets and beautiful like pouches and hair bows even. And I've done candles with Milk Jar, where I provide the art and we talk about the scent that we want to go with the artwork and do candles like that. I've done a collaboration with Adorn Boutique where we did sweatshirts. I have a couple coming up as well that I'm really excited about too. Yeah.
I love the spirit, the energy that it's not exclusive. That's an inclusive process with you. Yeah. And through you, I'm meeting so many painters. I mean, I remember when we first connected and then I announced that you were doing a show. I mean, my Perspectives Instagram account grabbed probably 15, 20 painters immediately. And then through that, it wasn't just follow and be, peeking and like, it was like they were DMing me and talking to me. And, we've already met, some of your friends, et cetera. And I love it. It's great. Yeah. And it's given me a lot of opportunity to try to expand my ability to get your work and everybody's work up on a wall.
Well, I think part of the way that I've been able to grow in this city and have people know about my artwork is through connections. And like, I don't think we were meant to just sort of sit in a room all alone, and the people that I've met through markets or just even walking into places and being like, hey, I'm Jill, I make art. What do you do? Like, I guess I'm kind of forward like that sometimes, but it's interesting to me to be able to create those connections with people. And like, that's how I've gotten a lot of the opportunities that I've been able to show my work in different places in the city, is just by asking and talking to people. And I think, you get what you want by asking. And sometimes you don't, but how else are you going to get it?
It's interesting. I had another moment this morning with another painter at a new partnership that Perspectives YYC, I suppose, I have with a coffee company, Vintage Caffeine in Kensington. Much like my first solo show, where a photographer asked the same question, they were like, how did you get it? Like, how did it happen? And then you get the flippant ability to be like, well, I asked, There's a lot that goes into it before then, of course. We get to speak psychologically, culturally, whatever it is. I mean,
well, and you have to come prepared with something to show.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And that plays into the self-confidence to even be able to ask.
Yeah.
And then I can't remember if, we've already spoken about this, but my psychiatrist brought up the idea of, this idea of people saying no. Those aren't failures. If the end result is for you to get a yes, if you ask 10 people and 9 people say no, 1 person says yes, that's still 100% success rate.
Right.
And so that concept of change in perspective that creates optimism out of what could be cynicism is a fascinating thing to explore, because I wallowed in it for 38 years of my life, just blaming everything and everyone about why I wasn't getting what I thought I deserved. And now that I'm trying to flip the switch on that, it's like, well, here's another cafe. And, I have a podcast because Kyle's, making me a podcast.
Right.
And
those opportunities, aren't just coming to you because you're just asking. Like, you also are doing the work and then, making the connections and you have to do the work too, right?
Yeah. I mean, going back to that self-reflective wallowing person, like when the first magazine came out in the tail end of the run, like my wife, she's amazing. She did the layouts. And then I've got Sam, who used to be a barista at the Film Sub. He's our editor. So in the last 2 weeks, they're doing a bunch of stuff. And I'm sitting there like, yeah, I'm making sort of executive decisions, but I feel like I'm not doing anything. And then I realized, you look at the calendar, I'm like, I'm meeting artists 3 times a day. I'm like running around. I'm like, there's a lot that goes into this. And I'm actually pretty frazzled today of all days because, you have to go out and do stuff. You can't just ask for things for free. So there's a lot of work that goes behind it. But at the end of the day, you also have to ask.
Oh, yeah.
If you don't, I mean, nobody's going to know.
There.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, shall we get to the darker elephant in the room?
Sure.
Well, we'll try not to pause it too much, but in the last 2 weeks, sort of thing happened. I don't know how I want to phrase it. Maybe I'll start this way by saying that Jill's work, through her ability to connect with people, is actually quite visible around the city. There's a lot of retail spaces and great partnerships, people that shouted out your show, which is amazing. So it's not just casual art. They're like people that are connected to you individually. And so, whether they're sole proprietorships, small shops, but one of them is West Elm in Calgary. Maybe I'll leave it at that and give you sort of the mic to give me just a frame on that, and we'll see how long we want to talk about it. But
well, so I had the opportunity to have a pop-up shop at West Elm in the summer of, I think, 2017, which was great. And I was so excited to do that. So I did that, and that sort of turned into them asking if I would like to display and sell my work within the shop after that. So I did. So I actually made some specific pieces for their sets, for their colors, for the seasonal changes at that time. And it was great. And my work, I think, sort of was switched in and out of the shop throughout kind of about a year's time or so. And so that was really awesome. One of the pieces that was there in particular was there for 8 months, and then it was taken out in the summer, just this past summer. And then a friend of mine texted me a picture saying, "Is this your art?" And it was on a bedding, like a duvet cover. And it looked almost exactly like the painting that was in the store for 8 months. So I was like, whoa, no, that's not mine. And I went through lots of different emotions, I guess. But the first thing I did was call the local store, because I've had a really great relationship with the people that work there. And I still do. They're amazing. And I actually went in there yesterday, and they were lovely to me, despite all that's kind of gone on. It really has nothing to do with the local store. So I've tried to maintain that throughout this. But anyway, so the first thing I did was call them. They were quite shocked and got me in touch with their higher up district managers in order to be able to get to corporate and their design team in New York and everything. So I kind of went through all the emails of people that had to go through. And then I waited for about 2.5 weeks and finally heard back from their lawyers. And their lawyers said that the design had nothing to do with my artwork and basically denied any relation to my work. So at that point I was pretty frustrated, and it wasn't the answer that I guess I expected, because everybody I showed it to, not just people that I knew, like people who just randomly, I guess, were friends of friends, or anybody I showed it to, even if they weren't really close to me, was just like shocked at how close it was. And it just didn't seem right, and like couldn't be just a coincidence. So I guess at that point I was kind of feeling like, oh, all right, well, if that's going to happen, I think it's time to sort of make it public and sort of see what public thinks, see what would happen from that. So I did. So I posted that on Facebook and Instagram. Wasn't really what I wanted to have to do. I didn't really want it to have to come to that, because conflict makes me feel yucky. Don't like that. But I wasn't satisfied with the way they dealt with it. I didn't feel like that answered my questions. I didn't feel like that satisfied what I was looking for, I guess. So I made it public, and that kind of spread like wildfire, and the news got a hold of it, and it even went on national news, which is just crazy.
I don't mean to. My mom called me from Toronto.
Oh my gosh.
And she follows my Instagram,
Yeah.
and she asked me about you.
Yeah.
And I was like, I am not, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Isn't that
national
nuts?
news, national news.
Like,
It's unreal.
I mean, I was so the news, just kind of went all over it for a while. It went from it was for a week. It was on different radio shows, on the national news, on local news, in newspaper articles, online articles, stuff like that. And at that point, their PR department got involved because the media was contacting them for a comment. And basically their comment was, we would never do this willingly. We love local artists and we're looking into it. So that was their answer to that. And then I heard from their PR people, and this is what I kind of haven't shared yet on social media because I don't really know what my next step is. But essentially their PR guy called me and said they have a timeline that shows that the production of this specific bedding and creation of it was in play, I guess, before this artwork was even created, and their timeline can show this, and they have this purchased pattern, which looks nothing like the final product. But anyway, so he basically said if I want to pursue that or if I want to see any of that, well, he didn't offer for me to see any of that. I said, well, can I see that? Because I don't want to just take your word for it. And he said, no, because that information is not really available to public, which I understand. Like, companies don't want all their design information given out. So at this point, if I want to pursue it, I would need a lawyer. I'm waiting on that. I have a friend whose husband is a lawyer who has very graciously told me that he would help me out based on contingency, which I think is, if I get paid out, then they get a portion of that. But I also kind of feel, I don't know, I'm torn. I don't really know. I don't want to take their word for it, but I also feel bad, getting a lawyer involved and having to get them to spend work on something like that. But he's very kind and wanting to sort of root for the underdog and kind of too. So I'm meeting him next week. So we'll see what comes of that. But it's definitely been a couple of weeks of like an emotional sort of ups and downs. But I've also tried to have the attitude of, like, worse things can happen. Like, my kids are healthy. I'm healthy. Like, I've tried to kind of have a different perspective looking. It really is just worse things can happen, I guess. And of course it does suck, but like, it's kind of been an interesting process too, to sort of see, the support of the community behind me is unreal. Like, that's just to know that people care, and like, no matter what kind of comes of it, just to know that people care about each other and are sort of rooting for you. And they're almost like proud that, you're standing up for yourself. Like, it's been a good opportunity to teach my kids even how to handle difficult situations gracefully. So I don't know if I've done that fully, but I'm trying to.
Thanks for listening so far. We just wanted to say that this podcast has been brought to you by Media Lab YYC. Kyle Marshall runs this amazing little outfit here in downtown Calgary. And we wanted to say this. Here at Media Lab YYC, we help you share your stories with the public, video, audio, business, personal. Let us help you take your idea to the finish line. Yeah, I mean, I don't have any real advice for you, obviously. It's interesting, like, listening to that, Kyle joked with me, I can't remember if it was on mic or not, that I am like this damn the man, essentially anti-corporate something. But it is fascinating, maybe the perspective of whether it's true or not. And, I'll reserve my opinion, but Jill, my opinion.
Yeah.
Just even the context of the conversation of, little girl, little guy versus big bad Goliath, our sense of community, how we deal with these things. Mm-hmm. I'm suddenly thinking when I was in insurance back in 2013 and we had those crazy floods here. Mm-hmm. The first thing that stuck out for me at that time was I received an order professionally to not contact anybody and do anything at the beginning.
Wow.
And the thing that struck me the most, because I'd only been in Calgary about a year and a half at that point, was like the moment the rain stopped, Calgary went out. Mm-hmm. And whether they realized how dangerous it was is kind of irrelevant. Mm-hmm. And just seeing the city kind of literally roll up its sleeves or show up in crop tops, mm-hmm. Whatever it is, and get, waist deep in poo, mm-hmm. mud, and mold. Yeah. And just help each other out was huge. Mm-hmm. And this is a little Toronto bashy, but I think about 4 weeks or something later, Toronto had flooded.
Oh, wow.
And because of the density of Toronto, et cetera, the insurance world looked over there because there's a lot more money. I mean, Calgary lost, it was huge, but the federal government came in, et cetera. But Toronto became a much larger loss situation on a, claim basis. And people in Toronto, they literally didn't even dry out their own basements and waited and complained to insurance companies like, well, it's been sitting here, it's molding now, it's been 8 weeks, you haven't sent an appraiser. And they're boy. You could drain your goddamn basement, and they're like, well, you have to see it. And so like the kind of temperate change, and it's not the individuals, like I know so many people in Toronto that are just, they're amazing. But as a society, when it comes to these sort of collaborative things, like watching the response when you kind of just put out your beacon, your experience. And regardless whether people agreed or not, pro or con, like people will respond.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a fascinating thing that I've been trying to bring up in these conversations with artists. There's something really important about that response of just holding each other up. And
it is, because especially during the sort of 2.5 weeks where I wasn't really sure if I should make it public, and I wanted to give the company a chance to figure it out, sort of right the wrong if it was. I'm generally probably too much of a trusting person, and I believe people that are going to do the right thing. And I think that's why I was really especially disappointed when they called and they were like, no, this has nothing to do with you. And I was just like, what? But the way that people kind of rallied around me and have sort of said, this is good that you did this, because it just, even as I said kind of before, no matter what comes from it, like it just brings awareness even too, that this happens a lot to other artists. And like, this isn't the first time that this has happened.
Oh God, no.
It's awful and it's sad. And like, I don't really know how to protect my work in that way. I don't, like, as we kind of already talked about in this podcast, I like to share. I like to tell everybody what I do and how I do it. And I want you to try your own way of being creative too, right? I guess, when a situation like this happens to an artist, in some ways, it has made me want to just close up and sort of hide and, not want to show or share or anything like that. But I don't think that's the right response. I think, despite the fact that that's kind of scary to me, I think that I can still be trusting and I can still be open and I can still share what I do. And, there's going to be people who don't do the right thing and who take things from people when they shouldn't. And there's going to be people who appreciate you and love what you do and learn from you. So I'm going to try and focus on that.
Which is good. And I think, good in the sense that I not only agree, but I respect that. I think that it's just so easy to point the finger. I've got 100 comments that'll point the finger at every goddamn thing right now. But, but I like
it's good to be passionate.
But I like the idea of bringing it back inside and saying like, okay, well, how am I going to, what's my next step? How do I respond?
I can't control everything. I can't control how it turns out, really. Like, I do definitely, I've thought a lot about it, and I do feel like it is, the next step for me is to get a lawyer involved and say, show me. Like, I do want to see that. I have that. I'm not just going to drop it at this point. But, I've got other things to do. I got to move on.
Well, yeah.
I can't let it consume everything. And it's been hard because the past couple of weeks it has. And I got other stuff to do that I'm excited about that make me happy. So
yeah, let's use that as a nice segue to talk about this. I look on your Instagram, or, we've met a few times, and you're busy.
Yeah.
You did mention before we started that unfortunately or fortunately, the art room hasn't been used yet. But I saw your work. We talked about this actually, even when we were saying the show. Where's your work right now? At a library?
Yeah. So I think it was just like 2 years ago. I bring my kids to the local public library and switch out books here and there sometimes. And they always have local art up on easels. So I said to the lady at the front desk, how do I do that? And she said, well, you just put your name on a list. And I was like, okay. Like, she didn't even ask to see my website or a business card or anything. I was like, okay, here's my name. And she's like, oh yeah, well, we'll call you when it's your turn. So I got a call, and timing worked out perfectly that they wanted it right for the beginning of October. And that just so happened that I was taking quite a bit of stuff down from Phil and Sebastian. So I plan to have some pieces there. So those are on display at the Signal Hill location for the month of October.
Oh, that's amazing. And then there's something else. Like, are you in a market, or what's happening over the Christmas? Or maybe I'm mixing it up.
You might be mixing it up. well, so now that I've taken those pieces that were at Phil and Sebastian, now I need to find kind of my homes for them again. And I do have a few different places throughout the city, like Alia is one of them that my work has been at for quite a while. And it's such a beautiful shop. And I feel like my work really goes well
it's
with the
macarons.
Sweetness of the macarons. Yeah.
That's my son's favorite. My son is so spoiled. That's
so
right,
good.
Emerson. I'm calling you out again. His favorite food is salmon roe sushi, ikura.
Oh, wow.
His favorite snacks, macarons. Right now, he demands
a
juice
4-year-old
with
foodie.
Juice with bubbling water in it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he's 4.
That's hilarious.
He's got an amazing palate. He's been helping us cook. Helen bought him a kid's prep knife.
Oh, fun.
So the other day, he helped chop mushrooms, and I can't remember the potato that time, but
wow, that's awesome.
This morning, he made my wife, he helped make, I don't want to overstate it, but he helped me make matcha lattes.
Oh, wow.
At home. We're setting this kid up for
I'd like to know Emerson, what's your favorite macaron flavor? What do you think?
Always pink right now. His favorite color is pink.
So he likes the pink.
So I think pink at Ollie is probably strawberry. But his favorite color has been pink his whole life. He's starting to deny now because boys are getting to him, but like he wears pink shoes at school. And
my youngest likes to wear nail polish.
Yeah, Emerson loves nail polish. We have to buy him. Did you get him the water-based one? Or do you use the
He just wears whatever I'm putting on because, he wants what I have.
Yeah. Emerson wanted to do it, I think, even before last year. And then Helen Googled it, and there's like one that's water-based, so it's not, acetone. Because they don't want the kids eating it. And so he got... I think he chose blue. Yeah. So he likes painting his nails, and now when he does a couple things. When he paints, he's always painting his nails at the end with real paint. And then the latest thing I noticed is he faux puts on lipstick. Oh, nice. From time to time. So we've got some interesting gender role stuff that's going to develop there. But it's exciting. You just watch this kid try different things. It's fun.
Yeah. Well, I went and dropped off artwork at Alia yesterday, and I tried the new fall ones. I hadn't. They have new fall flavors. Oh, they're so good.
Helen did a class there, and the only reason why we don't make macarons at home is you got to make all the same, like a lot as a batch.
The same, yeah.
So then she thought, she's like, it's expensive.
I don't even bother. I just go there because they make them best.
You should do the class though, because you come home with a swag. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
So I have my artwork there, and then I need to make a couple new pieces for some of the shops that I also have work at, because I often like to do Instagram sales. Yeah. So I did one recently, and got a lot of those pieces sort of moved out to make room for new. So I like to do that because I think sometimes it forces me to have the opportunity to create new things, because otherwise it just kind of gets stagnant. And so I almost make it happen that I have to do it. I like about that. Recently I was struggling with my Instagram in the sense that I started withholding some images that I thought, I didn't want to give away for free, etc. Mm-hmm. And then I had this reflection that, Alvin and I, my photography boyfriend, we've been shooting a lot, but I just haven't gone in and done the production. And then I realized, I need to just get this old shit out because my process is constantly changing. And then, fuck it. If I run out, then that just means I ran out, and then I got to go out and make it gives you a reason to make new things, right?
Yeah, interesting.
I think that's for me, it's in my own mind. It kind of... It forces me to create new things because I want to continue that relationship with that shop. And so I'll get things moved out so that I can make new things. And I hope that they appreciate that too, because then they get to have new sort of things switched over as well. And I've been very lucky because a lot of the places that I do have my work in continue to still want me to stay, which is awesome. But I wonder, and I haven't really asked them, but I do wonder if it's part in because I switch them out every couple months so that it doesn't become something that just sort of is stale there all the time. Yeah, stale, I guess is the right word. Yeah, I mean,
at least in my experience, running the art shows, it's why, for example, you had a solo show, but yours is the longest so far, 7 weeks or whatever it was. But we want to be mindful of that too, because if even with your beautiful, that 48 by 48 black, I mean, that's a beautiful painting. But if that sits for
people
6 months or a year,
anymore,
it becomes part of wallpaper at some point, which sucks.
You got to mix it up. Yeah. Well, so with other artists too that have their work in places, for me, it has worked to be able to stay at the same shops longer I think because I do switch them out myself rather than switching to another artist. I'm just like, here's another style.
Oh, I see.
Here's me again. But
it's like a Jill Paddock from like
Forever.
circa 2012.
Yeah. But it's true. I have work at Adorn in Inglewood, and I love having my artwork there because it's such a beautiful feminine shop with pink and like gold. And I mean, I can just throw sparkles and wonder at all those paintings, and they just fit so well within that space. At Pretty Sweet Bakery, another beautiful space. And plus, when I go there, I get cookies.
that's we
right?
just lead
I
with
try to
that.
work it around the food.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And Pearl and Dot Bridal Boutique is another place that I have work. And it's such a beautiful space. When they first started posting on Instagram, I knew of them through the owner's sister. And so I started following them too. And they just had such beautiful empty white walls, and I was like, I could put some art on those. So I said, do you want art? And they said yes, and that's continued on for 2 years now as well.
This making me reflect too on this morning's meeting with Austin Kamitz. We are sitting there at Vintage, and Vintage's walls are bare right now, and both of us are. You almost get like twitchy now. You're like, oh man, this is a travesty. Like it needs something.
Yeah.
And missions like that with your stuff gone, I'm getting comments both directly to me, and I see people talking to each other. All the baristas are asking me. Jacko approached me. He's like, when?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh. And I had to look at my calendar. And then there's this, visible sense of relief that it's not going to be just
empty,
barren nothing.
Well, like I've had some other artists ask me, like, how do you get your work in shops like that or whatever? And again, as we talked about, you ask. But I also think it's important to ask at the right places.
Yes.
Like I've been asked as well as I have asked. So it goes both ways now as well. But when I first started, I chose certain places to seek out because I felt that their decor or their philosophy or the way that they displayed their own stuff sort of matched my type of artwork. And so I think, depending on what style you do or what type of artwork you do, you'll know, if you see a space and be like, oh, my art would look really good there, well, then maybe that's a place you could ask, right? And not every place is going to be the right place for you too. So.
Yeah, that's one thing that I've noticed with mine. I don't remember who it was, but someone had met me. Last year I think it was Curated Markets, and Candice, who's awesome, Candice Boudreau, she has these portrait sessions you do. So the photographer took a picture of me and commented that I have is it cheesy or corny or silly smile or something? Like I just look like a total goofball. And then she met my wife at a women's entrepreneur event, and when they started talking, they realized that I'd been taking a photo of.
Yeah.
And then my wife showed her my work on Instagram, and she actually was taken aback. And she's like, your husband's work is so masculine and moody and dark. And I was like, holy shit. I don't really think about it that way, but this is not, a lot of the stuff that I do doesn't really go on a lot of walls, I guess.
Well,
I don't walk into a beautiful boutique and be like, you know what, this could use.
Yeah, but that's the thing is that you got to find your places. Yeah. And I don't think, just because it might not fit like a bridal boutique doesn't mean it doesn't have a place in a beautiful space, beautiful modern space, because I don't look at your work and think that it's, dark or moody. I love it. And I think some of the things that you think might not be, good enough for the light of day, well, they actually are. And the things that I've experienced this as well. Sometimes the things that you as an artist or photographer or maker of anything, the things that you think are your worst, you put them out there and be like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. Everyone's going to hate it are the things that people like the most. And you're like, what? I was about to paint over that. I hated it so much, right? That has happened to me a lot. And I don't know. You just got to be willing to put it out there and just see.
Yeah, 2 comments. First, my work currently is up at this great men's shop, Stuff for Him,
cool.
on 11th Ave. It's been up there a while. Spencer's been a great supporter of mine, and I haven't shouted him out yet because it hasn't come up that I have my work up on walls. But he's been great. So if you're a man who likes fancy things, go to Stuff.
That's awesome.
And the second thing that's interesting to me is, this idea of whatever that personal connection is to your artwork, And then you have an association with what it means to you, which is different than what it means to other people. So last year, I also met one of the most apparently famous photographers, George Weber. He's such a nice guy. He spent some time to talk to me. And one of the things that he told me, I mean, if you ever see George Weber's work, it's crazy. Like I've opened up books of his and I've felt emotionally moved from a photograph without context. It's the weirdest thing. He's just got something. I don't know what it is, but he's got something. And an older gentleman, super nice, super laid back, and like you, so easy to share. And so I literally was nobody, didn't have perspective, didn't have anything. And Costas, who I hope to have on the show, runs a Resolve Photo, introduced me to this man, spends 10 minutes, tells me about how he leaves rolls of film undeveloped for 2-3 years in a box and comes back to it. But he said he did that because he didn't want the context of why, how, or what he shot in the moment to affect what he was seeing in the image itself.
Right.
And I wonder, is there something like that with like painting? Because, you know, when you're painting and it is a movement of some spiritual energy, some emotional thing, and then you step back, the idea of then quickly stowing it under the stairs for 2 years and then coming back and being like, oh, okay, well, now that like, where do you find your process in terms of how you assess your own work?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, often I have looked back at things that I've done and been sort of shocked at, like, I don't know how I did that. And I think that sort of is telling in a way of the emotion at the time that I was putting into it. I do think that, like, sometimes I look at things and just can't even believe that I did it. Like, I'm proud of it and surprised and like, wow, I don't think I could ever do that again. But then, you know, you do it in different ways again. So, but yeah, I don't know. I definitely, like, I haven't ever really, maybe it's just because I have sort of a shorter attention span of things. Like, I don't just put things away and not do something with it for a long time and forget about it. I'm always, like, if I don't like it after a while, I'll paint over it. I'm quick to switch things around. I don't really give things a lot of time to sort of sit. The things that I look back on and be sort of like, wow, like, I'm proud that I did that, are ones that I've sold and see again, you know, through my phone photos, or when somebody else brings it up and they're like, remember this painting? I have it and I love it. And I'm like, oh yeah, I love that one too. Or sometimes it'll be at a shop for a while and I haven't seen it for like 6 months and it'll come back to my house and it'll be like, oh, I love this one. Usually if I'm around them too long, I start to dislike them. So usually when they're away from me and come back, then I like them again. So I don't usually keep things around me for too long because then I don't like them and I start to change them. I don't know. That's kind of weird. But.
No, I totally identify with it. It's interesting. There's like in the magazine, Alvin, again, I'll stress my boyfriend, wrote a piece about the philosophy of street photography through the eyes of his hero, Gary Winogrand. And ultimately the Coles notes, if you will, are that the only thing that mattered to Gary Winogrand at the end of the day, and I think George Weber is the same, is it's a rectangle, 4 walls, and something's happening in there. It needs to speak for itself. And so for George, his advice to me, I think it comes from a similar philosophical sense, like, forget about the why, the where, the one, and just look at it as an image. And then it becomes very, either it's still emotional. I'd hate to believe that you put up, you know, golden rule of thirds, like transparencies and give a shit about technical stuff like that.
I don't.
Yeah, I mean, but at the same time, you know, it's interesting from a painting perspective that, you know, how do you assess a connection to a painting? Is it, I remember that I was super angry, super connected, super happy, or is it about brushstrokes? Is it about color? Is it about palette? And not that I want you to define it technically. Yeah. I guess I'm just throwing examples in the sense of, to show my limited understanding of painting.
No, I think there's definitely pieces that have been very emotional for me because of what I might have been feeling at the time when they were created. And the people who own those pieces are actually people who I know well. So that's turned out kind of interesting because I feel like they've been drawn to those because they know me and they know the story behind it as well. But for the most part, my artwork is, I like making beautiful things just for the sake of beautiful things. Like, I mean, I think lines and shape and movement and colors are beautiful, and they don't always have to have like a really deep emotional feeling to them, other than that it's a beautiful thing in a world that sometimes is difficult and hard. And like, to me, that's what art is all about. it kind of came to me at a time when I wasn't maybe feeling on top of the world. I was feeling kind of anxious and stressed out and just kind of confused and worried at, all the things in life that are hard. And so for me, art is, it's spiritual. It's like a meditation. It's something that sort of brings me to a place where I can just be free. And so in my work that is maybe abstract or even just sort of like those florals, those are a way of just sort of being free. And so if people see those and feel that, like that to me, like some people might look at those paintings and just be like, it's a flower. But I think the people who look at it and it connects to them emotionally, maybe they are understanding that, it's freedom, I guess, in that moment. And it's being able to just let go and do something that you love and try to sort of let everything else fall away.
My opening premise for issue 2, which we hope to publish soon, is that art should not be defined by all these categories, and it's just the expression of the spirit.
Well, I saw something recently that said, if you dance, you're a dancer. If you paint, you're a painter. If you, you don't have to be a professional of the thing to call yourself an artist. Like if you want to make something, you are a maker of something. So just try it.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I want to just, as we close off here, thank you, A, for coming to see me, B, for putting up your work at Phil & Sebastian. That was a big show. I think
fun.
Not just for you, finding out that was your first solo show is nuts to me, but also establishing, perspectives there with not only because you have a great following, but the work was great and it really generated a lot of conversation. And lastly, just for sharing, all your spiritual energy, whatever you want to call it, with us. I love your work. I think, I hope that as we move forward, we'll find other ways to collaborate.
Oh, for sure.
And I guess that's all I've got.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Ta-da!
All right. Right, Kyle? That's pretty good. Close enough. All right. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.
Bye.
Lay your